Welcome to the Big Money Questions. I'm Rachel Rickard-Strauss, Personal Finance Editor at This Is Money. This week we've got Mark Homer with us. He's just written a book called Low Cost High Life, and it's about how to live an affordable life of luxury. We thought that sounded quite good, and so we're going to ask Mark about it. Mark, give us some tips. How on earth do you do this? What's the secret?
Well, I think the key to long-term wealth and sort of living well on a low budget is really reducing your costs and putting that money away into high-yielding investments, so that you can sort of live a better life a little bit later on. So it's all about delayed gratification. One of my favourite sort of concepts, you know, the eighth wonder of the world to me is compounding. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly, but I just, you know, if you can focus on compounding in every area of your life, whether it's money or whether you exercise or whether you eat well or, you know, in your relationships, it has a massive effect over time. So those little sort of baby steps that you put in early on create massive sort of results over the long term. And low cost high life is just about creating a life of, you know, of your dreams really on a low budget. So, you know, you might go long haul on business or first class flights. You know, if you do it the right way using Avios, you could do it for £600 a seat instead of £6,000 a seat. You know, if you're going to maybe buy clothes, you know, you can get them for very, very good prices from certain suppliers online or through eBay or various other different ways, which would allow you to probably put the extra money that you saved away into an investment, which will create a much bigger sort of life for you over the medium to long term.
So what do you suggest that you do buy and what do you not buy? What's the rule? Because you can't just say, I mean, it's quite obvious, I suppose, that if you don't buy anything, then you're going to end up with more money. So there are some things that I guess you would say are useful to buy and others less so. How do you decide? Well,
for me, it's all about buying things that don't depreciate. That's the number one sort of rule, or appreciate, or at least don't depreciate as much. So if I'm looking for a car, the first thing on the list will be how much it depreciates by, because that's usually the biggest cost. So I drive a Porsche 911. I think, you know, let's say, well, I paid $78,000 for that, and I bought it 2.5 years ago. That car today is worth 62, and you know, if you look at the sort of, you know, 16,000 that's dropped by, it's not actually that much over, you know, that sort of period of time. It might be, I don't know, 7,000, something around that. If I'd have bought a new Ford Mondeo at the same point, it would probably have depreciated more over the same period. Yeah, the servicing may be in a bit less, and the maintenance may be in a little bit less. But actually, you know, if you took all the costs together, it would probably end up costing me more money than buying that Porsche in a sort of more intelligent way.
So you think you've saved money buying a Porsche instead of a Ford Mondeo?
I think I have, yeah. By buying it in the right way, buying it used, 2 or 3 years old, you know, spending a bit of time on Auto Trader, looking around, really negotiating hard. Another way, you know, which I'll tend to go into cars is using contract hire. If you use contract hire brokers online, you can get massive savings on cars. You know, we've had a lot of cars in the office, might be Audi, sort of A7, or, you know, lots of BMWs, Mercedes are very good with it. You might be paying $250 a month. It's a hire, and you give it back at the end of the 2 years, but there's no depreciation. So I've got some sort of brilliant websites to find those. Watches, you know, you could go and buy a watch on the high street. You may end up spending a few £100s on it. You can guarantee if you buy the wrong one, it might be worth next to nothing as soon as you walk out of the shop. If you buy a really good watch, or should I say a watch that over time has a history of appreciating because they don't make that many, and it's the right brand, it'll end up costing you less in reality. And then at the end of the 5 years or 10 years when you want a different watch, you'll be able to go and sell it and probably get more back than you paid for it. and that allows you then to sort of get a better watch. So it's sort of turning things on its head. It's I don't know, it's champagne lifestyle for lemonade money.
But all of these assume that you have that capital to start with. You have
That's
to be
true.
able to buy
Yeah.
a more expensive watch. You have to be able to afford to buy the more expensive car in the first place.
Yeah.
To get your first class seats using Avios points, you have to spend quite a lot on your Amex in order to be able to accrue those points. So are there things that you can do if you don't have that capital to start with?
Well, I started with nothing. You know, I was fortunate in that my parents paid for a good education, but my dad was so tight. He was tight beyond belief, and a lot of that, you know, is sort of in the book. And you know, for me, it was all in the early days about just saving every single penny that I could do, and I probably took it a little bit too far. You know, I had a Vauxhall Nova, which I bought from the auction for £46, and it did 55,000 miles, and I changed the oil myself, and it cost £2.84 for the filter and £1.89 for the oil. And you know, I went all around university, and that was cheaper than getting the bus. It really was. Every year I'd go and get the insurance online. I'd go through, you know, probably 12 different insurance companies because everyone else was paying 1,200 quid and I'd end up paying 350 quid. So every single thing like that, whether it was utilities, my mobile phone, I love using Money Saving Expert. It's a really good website. I would just go through that. I would take all the cost out of everything, and then any leftover money I would put into appreciating assets. So I managed to get my first house in my early 20s, and obviously started renting that out and getting other investments. I started with my first ISA when I was, I think I was 16, and I've just done them every year ever since. Yeah.
So to start with, you just have to not spend money, basically, or save, save as much as you can, and then once you have that, then you can put that money to use to make money for you later on.
Yeah,
but there's no kind of shortcut in those early stages. You've just got to cut back.
I think you need to sort of put a plan together. So, you know, if you know you're sort of eating out, I don't know, 5 nights a week, and you sort of plan a little bit, and you maybe go to the supermarket and you buy, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 ready meals instead of doing that. That was something I used to do. I used to spend loads on sort of eating out. I'd end up saving £100, £150 a week just on that sort of lifestyle change. You know, and then I would put that money into a savings account, which I would then invest in some funds, or I'd buy a tracker or something that would, you know, sort of go into the FTSE. You know, every single area in my life like that, this was probably a little bit extreme, but and this was more sort of time saving, but it did save me a lot on sort of toiletries and all that sort of stuff. I went around the house and I found every single non-perishable item. So that would be shampoo, sort of, you know, shaving foam, razor blades, even sort of dustbin liners, everything. I bought 2 years worth of supply of everything, but very, very cheaply because I bought it all in bulk. And then stored it in the house. That was when I was starting my business, you know, which obviously saved me a lot of time, but it saved me a load of money as well, and a load of those sort of wasted trips, spending a lot of money, you know, at the convenience store where it's 3 times the price. So I think it's about planning your week and about thinking about where you're spending your money, itemising it out and being quite specific about how you can reduce those costs and then put that money into income-producing assets.
Okay. Tell us about you talk about in your book the wealth mirage. So that is looking like you are very wealthy or are spending lots of money, but actually doing that on a low budget. How does that work?
Well, I think, you know, there are lots of people who would spend money to sort of feed their ego, or you know, someone said to me recently that insecurity can be a very costly exercise. If you have the ability to sort of go and buy, I don't know, you know, nice clothes, or maybe you want to go and buy, I don't know, a Tumi case for your laptop, or you know, you want to go and buy a nice jacket or whatever, why not buy a used one? Why not go on, say, Amazon or eBay or whatever, find a used one. Most of the time people won't know. Most of the time, people will just see you with it, and you'll still feel pretty good. But you'll have sort of saved the money. And I think if you can sort of go through all the areas of your life and work out, get the non-branded stuff, which you would, looks like the sort of branded thing, but isn't necessarily the branded thing, reduce all your costs in that way, then you probably end up with a very similar result, but saving a lot of money, which you can then put towards investments.
You talk a lot about compounding and how that is, it really is your best friend, isn't it? But you talk about it both ways, both as someone with investments, but also someone with debt. Can you talk me through that?
Well, compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. It's unbelievable over the long term, because on the good side, obviously, you got £100 today, you make 10% interest. Well, that's worth £110 next year. But then the year after that, you add the £10% onto the £110, and you make the £10, but then another £1 on the 10 that you made last year. So you end up with 121, and that just multiplies. So over time, it creates this sort of massive number without you necessarily needing to put the effort in every year. It's you're earning money when you sleep. You're not needing to swap time for money. It's a very important concept. So if that's happening automatically in the background, someone like Warren Buffett would have used it to his advantage in a massive way over a long period of time. And in the early days, maybe he didn't make that much on each investment, but he hasn't lost money and he hasn't spent much money, and therefore the compound effect over time has made him, well, he was pretty much, if not the richest man in the world. So compound is massively powerful, and it's not just interest in the bank, but it's investments, or sort of anything to do with money really, and other areas of your life. So if you're getting an 8% return on a stock market fund or something like that, if you don't draw it out at the moment, you wait 20, 30 years, the net effect over that period is going to be huge. And of course, conversely, it has exactly the same effect the other way around. So credit card companies use this to their advantage, where they have very, very high rates of interest, and they allow people to just pay off a little bit every month instead of the whole balance. And of course, what that's doing is then charging interest on interest, and they often accrue it on a monthly basis. So by the end of the year, even if you paid the amount you've actually spent on the card, if you paid all that off, you could have a massive amount in interest still owing to the credit card company. And of course, payday lenders and lots of other of those kind of institutions use compound interest to their advantage, and apply what looks like quite small rates, might look like 1 or 2% a month, but by the end of the year it's huge because it multiplies interest on interest on interest. So you just need to turn it to your advantage and realise that small steps now in the right direction, and just saving a little bit now and putting it away compounds into this massive figure over the medium to long term.
Share with us some of your other tips, because you, as you say, started with very little and now have a massive property portfolio, and you're also an investor in other things as well. What other things do you do that you could suggest viewers might consider?
Well, if we get onto the credit cards, you don't have to spend loads on those to get a good sort of Avios balance and to start flying long haul. So if you go and get an American Express, a British Airways card, once you've spent about £2,000 on that, you'll get a bonus amount of Avios. You usually get 25,000 put straight in your account. You can open a Platinum card, an American Express Platinum, spend about the same amount, get the bonus on that, 25, 30,000 points, put it in there. You could refer your mum. You get the referral Avios for doing that. She then spends 2,000 on it, or you do on a supplementary card. You could then do it with your father, and I used to do that on a round robin every year through 4 cards. So I'd end up with over 100,000 Avios, which would allow me to fly 2 of us, business class, for £600 a seat every year, for spending maybe about £10,000 a year on a card. So, yes, if you're just a sort of normal spender, then it does. You need to spend a significant amount on those cards. But if you just have a look at some of those American Express cards, like the BA Premium Plus or the Amex Platinum card, and work out how the bonuses work over a period of time, you can accrue those miles very, very quickly. There's a brilliant website for it. It's called Head for Points. Rob, the guy that runs that, is beyond anything I understand in that sphere. He's awesome. If you go through there, I read it almost every day. There's every little tip and trick and new little, wormhole and, bit you can weave through on that website. There's hordes of people on there. They're all booking a year ahead to sort of get, because it can be difficult to book the seats. But a lot of them are flying first class for £600 long haul, and they're doing it every year. They're getting two trips a year like that. So I love that system. I just think it's sort of it's the champagne lifestyle for lemonade wages. I think it's a fantastic thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for talking us through your tips, and thank you for joining us for the Big Money Questions.